here from 50 Shades of Mom. Today we are in the kitchen because today we are cooking enchiladas. So stay tuned and watch this super easy, super flavorful dish become a household favorite. Okay guys, so I got my favorite Copper Chef pan heating up on the stove, and in the pan is just like a tablespoon or two of olive oil. You really don't need much more than that. If I was doing something like chicken or something like that and I would want more of a crust on the outside, I would do a little bit more oil. But being that we're working with ground beef and it sweats out a lot of fat, you literally only need this to sweat the vegetables in the beginning. So we have about 1 cup of diced onions, 1 can of your favorite beans, so I'm using black beans, 2, let me see the ounces on this, 2 10-ounce cans of enchilada sauce. I'm using the Old El Paso kind. You need 1 cup of diced up peppers. I'm using half a bag of the red, yellow, and green bell peppers that are chopped already from Trader Joe's. But that's kind of the versatility about these kind of recipes, like the chicken roll-ups I showed you guys once before. And these, Mexican is really a flavor palette that's so large that you really could choose any kind of bean you want. You can go heavier on the peppers, lighter on the peppers, heavier on the onion, lighter on the onion. This is just the way that I've perfected it, but that's the beauty of things like this, is that you guys can tweak it to whatever works best for you. So here I have just about 2 pounds of ground beef. I have 1 of the 8-ounce bag of Sargento. This is the 4-state cheddar. This is what's going to go inside the enchiladas, and then I just have a little bit of cheese in this bag left over from BJ's that I'm going to use to sprinkle on top. And then these are the tortillas that I use. I mentioned a couple of times that I always get the big ones for things like this. If I want to do tacos, I'll get like a taco kit. But for the benefit of things like enchiladas or those chicken roll-ups, I like to use the large burrito style flour tortillas. So I'm going to test this pan. It needs a few more minutes to heat up, so let that come up to temperature, and then we'll start throwing things into the pan. Okay guys, so we have achieved sizzle in the pan. So I'm going to start off with dropping that cup of diced onions. Okay guys, so I've had the onions cooking in here for like 5 minutes now. Really smells so good in here. And I'm going to drop the peppers in now. Now once we get the vegetables cooked up, this is why this recipe is so simple, because this is the most difficult part, and that's one of the reasons why I like to buy these already chopped vegetables, because chopping sometimes is the most difficult part. But once this part's done, we're literally going to add in the meat and beans, and once it's cooked, we add enchilada sauce and cheese, and we're going to wrap them in those wraps and stick them in the oven with some more of that enchilada sauce and cheese on top. So it's really easy, but it's so good. Alright, so we got our peppers and onions pretty much sweated down. I'm going to do a fair amount of black pepper and salt. Alright, and then in going my black beans. Now, I drained a good portion of this out of here, but I left some fluid in here just to help keep the flavor of the beans and stuff throughout the meat. So we're only going to give this part like a minute or two just to render down a little bit and mix the flavor with peppers and onions, and then we're going to put the ground beef in. Okay guys, so the peppers, the onions, the beans, they've all cooked down, and then now we're just going to add the ground beef. Chop this down the best that you can. I guess it would work a little bit better, any kind of really ground beef recipe. I always wanted one of those tools. I have to get myself one of those like ground beef masher tools. But I guess if you had fresh ground beef that you didn't freeze like into a shape, when I use my food saver, I try and freeze them into like flat discs so that it's easier for me to lie in my refrigerator. My freezer is that pull down freezer from the pull out bottom drawer. And I try and keep like buckets in there and stuff to keep it organized the best that I can. But after going to something like BJ's or when you stock up on meat, it's like amazing how quick that freezer fills up. So I usually do it like in flat pieces, but then it takes a lot to kind of break it up. But all right, so I'm going to cook this down, and then once that's all cooked, we'll come back and we'll do the last and final stages. Okay guys, so I got the meat all ground and browned up, and then I added 1 can of that enchilada sauce. And it just took some time to cook it down. Now the only thing that's really left is just a little bit of the fat that's on top from the beef. And now we're going to add the whole bag of cheese. So the whole 1 cup of cheese. And we're going to fold this in. You really, honestly, at this point could even shut the heat off. Everything is cooked through. You're really just going to work the cheese through until it helps kind of thicken it up a little bit. This is the first time I ever made enchiladas in this copper pan, which as much as I love this pan, I will not do again, just because there's not really enough room in this pan for me to really work. With this, I probably should have dumped this in a bowl to mix this cheese in, because like I said, it's all cooked already. So now what I'm going to do is finish mixing all of this up, and then I'm going to give it just a few minutes to rest, and then we're going to plate them inside of the pan. I'll show you how I roll them up, and then we're going to drizzle that other can of enchilada sauce and a little bit more cheese on top, and then bake them in the oven. Now, you don't have to bake them in the oven for long because obviously everything in here is completely cooked already. So you're only kind of putting it in there to get those tortillas good and warm, and the cheese and the enchilada sauce on the outside to all warm up. And then they'll be ready to serve. Okay, so I already started rolling some of these just so I can test the consistency and make sure it was cool enough for me to start plating them and show you guys how I put it in there. So I usually get like 2 good heaping spoons and fill it out. I only usually put it in the center circle because once I start rolling it, it starts to ooze out the side. So if you put it too close, it makes a mess. So I flip one side over and I just kind of pull it back, and then I take this side and I fold it over, and then I fold it again together, and I make the 2 of them meet. And this way, it just kind of helps keep it flat and down. And I'll show you guys in 1 second what it looks like all set up in the pan. So we're going to do one more. I have 5 enchiladas in this big pan. Now, they're big enchiladas. Like, I only eat 1. Usually, Daryl can eat 2. Paul used to only eat 1. Jake will only eat 1. So sometimes, depending on our mood, I will make a whole nother tray, and we just either keep them in the in the refrigerator for lunches, or I'll freeze a whole tray. I usually get, every once in a while, I get those silver trays from BJ's. They're like $6 for 50 of them, and then I can get something like that and freeze them. And have extra meal on hand. But sometimes, like tonight, Daryl said, hey, let's leave what's extra in the pan, and we'll do our nacho chips, or we'll freeze a Tupperware of it and we'll use this like a dip. I'll throw some queso cheese, like Velveeta kind of cheese in here, and make this similar to a queso. So let me detach this from the tripod and down went the tripod. All right, and then let's do this part together. So this is a 13 by 10 pan that the 5 of them fit in, and that is like maybe like a third of the mixture is left still in the pan. So now you're going to take the enchilada sauce and you're just going to pour it all over the top. And now it has a can of this in there and all of that cheese, so it's good and liquidy in there. This is more or less to keep it from drying out when it's in the oven. And then we're just going to take a couple of handfuls of that cheese and just like to sprinkle it over the top so it gets all melty when we stick it in the oven. And now I only leave it in the oven for like 5 minutes, and then I just shut the oven off, and I can leave it in there for like another 5 minutes or so just to make sure that it's all melted. And that was about it. That was probably like maybe a half a cup, a little more, literally just meant for sprinkling. So I'm going to put these in the oven, and then I'll come back and show you what they look like when they're all done. Okay guys, so that is the finished product. It's what it looks like, all melty out of the oven. You can finish it off how you like it. We're big sour cream eaters in this house, and I love cilantro, so I'll probably put a bunch of sour cream and cilantro on mine, and that is what we're going to put in the middle of the table right now, and we're going to use that as a chip dip, and we're going to sit and eat. Hit that subscribe button on my face if you are new to my channel. Hit that last video box in the corner if you missed the last video. Hit that like button, comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.